Mr. Elko, coming back at you for the second video of the pre-proof reasoning classwork. This video is going to be based off of pages 5 and 6. So let's see if we remember and are starting to learn some of these geometric statements. What's nice about this is now for each question you have your own individual diagram. Question number 1. Given AB is perpendicular to CD, what conclusions can we make? All right. Well, we know that perpendicular lines form right angles. So the conclusion we could make is that angle ABC and angle ABD are right angles. Okay? And the reason would be that perpendicular lines form right angles. Now you could write out the word perpendicular. Perpendicular lines form right angles, or you could have used the symbol instead of writing out the word perpendicular. All right, that was number 1. Number 2, given triangle ABC, median and median BD. All right, so first we got to understand the definition of a median. All right, what a median is, it's drawn from a vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. So what we know right there is that point right there would be the midpoint of AC. So that's the conclusion we're going to make. We're going to say that D is the midpoint of segment AC. And the reason would be just giving the definition of what a median is. All right? Because that's what was given. We always base our reason off of the concept in the given. All right? So what we're going to say is a median is drawn from a vertex to the midpoint of the opposite side. All right. So if you can see what you did with the reason, you basically combine what was given to what you concluded. So median and midpoint. I explained that within the reason. Okay. Question number 3. Question number 3. Let me slide this up. Says that you're given that B is a right angle. So we know that's a right angle. Okay. What we can conclude is that the measure of angle B is 90 degrees. All right. And the reason, a right angle measures 90 degrees. Okay. Moving right along here. Question number 4. All right. The given information is that AB, segment AB, is congruent to segment BC. All right. So we have a triangle and 2 of these sides are congruent. What conclusion can we make? We can say that triangle ABC is isosceles. All right. And the reason, an isosceles triangle, use the symbol there, has 2 congruent sides. An isosceles triangle has 2 congruent sides. Good. All right. Moving along to the right side, back up to the top. Question number 5. Okay, so question number 5 states that we are given angle ABC and CBD are supplementary. Okay, so if we know that the angles are supplementary, the conclusion we can make is that the angles add up to 180 degrees. Now you see how the angles are labeled with these numbers. So ABC was labeled with a 1 and CBD was labeled with a 2. In the statement, we could say use those labels. The measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 180 degrees. And the reason, supplementary angles have a sum of 180 degrees. Okay. Number 6. All right. If we look at number 6, it says that we have segments AB and CD. All right. So this is one that takes us back to earlier in the year. If we have two segments that intersect, we form two congruent angles there. All right. Angles, I'm going to name it AEC. And angles DEB. An angle DEB, I should say. All right. Now, just trust your instincts. What type of angles are those? Angles that are crossed from one another formed by intersecting lines are called vertical angles. All right. So the reason is vertical angles are congruent. Okay. Last one on the front side. Given diagram as marked. So if we look at the markings of the diagram, we have tick marks through each side. All right. That indicates that all three sides are congruent. So that would in turn, if we have a triangle with three congruent sides, we know that triangle ABC is equilateral. And the reason? An equilateral triangle has three congruent sides. Okay, so that takes us through the front side on page 5 of your assignment packet. Going to the second page, page 6. All right, number 8, the one up top. Okay, you're given altitude BD and triangle ABC. So what an altitude is, it's drawn from a vertex perpendicular to the opposite side. So this altitude is drawn perpendicular to AC. So what we know is that BD is perpendicular to AC. And the reason is what the definition of an altitude. An altitude is drawn from a vertex perpendicular to the opposite side. Okay. Number 9. Given. All right. So the fact BD bisects ABC. Okay. So this segment BD bisects angle ABC. So what we can say is, think about what an angle bisector does. It divides the angle into two congruent angles. So we can say angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. And the reason is just explain what an angle bisector is. Okay. An angle bisector divides an angle into two congruent parts. Bam. Okay. So that was number 9. Number 10. Okay. The given, the fact. Angle 1 and angle 2 are complementary. So think about the word complementary. What does that allow us to say? Well, we know that complementary angles are two angles that add up to 90 degrees. So these are the complementary angles. We know that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 equals 90 degrees. All right. And we could say that complementary angles have a sum of 90 degrees. Bam, number 10. Okay. Number 11, in this diagram, we are given diagram with segment AD. Okay, so what conclusion can we make? Now, there's a few we can make here. It says in the directions that there's different answers here. What I'm going to say is that since the only piece that's given is that this is a line, I'm not going to focus on the triangle. I'm going to focus on the given, the line. I know that this angle and this angle are supplementary. Okay, so angle 1 and angle 4 are supplementary. And the reason, you could just shorten this one. You could say if two angles form a linear pair, they are supplementary, but you could just say, really, that they're a linear pair because it's assumed. If it's a linear pair, they're supplementary, and then you can even take it a step farther and say that then if they're supplementary, they add up, the two angles add up to 180 degrees. Okay? The last column here, all right, 12 was crossed out, 13. D is the midpoint of AB. All right, D is the midpoint of AB. What's the conclusion we can make? Well, if you think about what a midpoint does, a midpoint divides a segment into two congruent pieces. So we can say AD is congruent to, I'm going to say, BD. I guess I want AD and BD. I try to match it up that way. Or you technically could have said just AD is congruent to DB. I guess both of those would have worked. And the reason is a midpoint. Just what's the definition of a midpoint? A midpoint divides a segment into two congruent parts or segments. Okay, that was 13. 14, given AB. All right, so we have line AB. Okay, what can we conclude just knowing that that's a line? All right. So what we actually can conclude there is that the measure of angle 1 plus the measure of angle 2 plus the measure of angle 3 would equal 180 degrees. And the reason, a straight angle is 180 degrees, all right? Because those three angles, the sum of those three angles would be 180 since AB is a straight angle, okay? And number 15, the last one here. We're given that angle, this is an important one, we're given that angle 1 is congruent to angle 2. So this angle and this angle are congruent. What can we conclude? All right. Well, if these angles are congruent, we can conclude that this segment's an angle bisector. So we're going to say segment BD, so that segment BD, bisects, and just then name the angle it bisects. BD bisects angle ABC. That's the conclusion we can make. And the reason, give the definition of what an angle bisector is. An angle bisector divides an angle into two congruent angles. Okay, and that's it for your classwork. So hopefully you're able to follow these videos. A lot of these words, such as perpendicular, bisector, vertical angles, and those things hopefully are familiar. What you want to do over the next few days is just start to remember the reasons, the statements that we can make. And if you the more work you put into memorizing these statements, the easier two-column proofs get when we begin those in a few weeks. So thanks for listening. Enjoy the rest of your week. Bye-bye.